Hello and welcome to Eye of Gnosis. My name is Ewan and today we are starting a new suit in the Thoth Tarot, looking at the suit of swords, beginning of course with the Ace of Swords. Now I have already done playlists on the suit of wands and the suit of cups, and if you haven't already gone and watched those videos, I highly recommend doing so. And if you're short of time, then at least please watch the wands videos as I go into the numerology into much more depth. And the numbers go across each of the suits, their meaning remains the same, even if their interpretation changes with the suit. And if you do just want to know the divinatory interpretation of this card, I have put a timestamp in the description for you below, so you can go straight to that if you wish. But as ever, I highly recommend watching this video in full first, so you have a greater grasp and understanding of what you're reading and why the interpretation is so, and it will really help with your divination. So without further ado, we will look into the Ace of Swords. So here we see this jade sword rising up from these billowing clouds. We see these three spheres forming a triangle on its hilt, whilst a snake coils up the handle. The guard features these two moons which sandwich two of the spheres, and on the blade we see the Greek word thelema written in the Greek alphabet. Behind the sword we see this large sun rising from a calm sea, and it spreads up to the heavens in this strange fractal geometric pattern. And in the heavens we have this crown through which the sword pierces with 22 rays. We will come near the end to describe all these elements, what they mean and why they mean it. So let's look a little bit deeper into the Ace of Swords. So the Ace of Swords is the offspring of the Ace of Wands and the Ace of Cups. It is the spirit of the alchemical element of air, which is represented by the Ace of Swords. It represents the mind and its thoughts. Indeed, the entire suit of swords does so, and the Ace of Swords encapsulates the entire suit. Like air, thoughts can be insubstantial and invisible, yet they have a potent effect on us and our environment. Metaphysically, thoughts are the awareness of awareness, consciousness being conscious of itself. This is, of course, the mind. In the Ace of Swords, we have this concept in its purest form, a complete mindful observation that is utterly objective and humble in its service to consciousness. It is giving definition and meaning to the metaphysical spheres of the wands and the chemical spheres of the cups. This is known as Yetzirah in Kabbalah. There is a strange paradox with regard to the mind, in that it is, like air, passive and all-embracing, yet at the same time able to become narrow and penetrating. In this sense, the mind can be honed, for better or for worse, into an incorporeal physical object, much like the force of compressed air. Thus, the sword quality of the mind is born, as thoughts and the only evidence of their passage are the physical changes they bring to their environment. The mind is the conduit of the will, and must be wielded with skill and responsibility like a sword. This is because it is a dangerous and destructive weapon in the hands of fools and corrupted psyches. Yet when one has trained with the blade and learned to forge a weapon with balance and folded strength, it can be wielded with art and grace, and used to slay monsters when necessary. And throughout all this, we see the clear analogy of the mind to a sword. Another concept linked to the suit of swords, and in particular the Ace of Swords, is that of Occam's razor. This philosophical standpoint posits that when faced with multiple solutions or explanations to a problem or query, it is usually the simplest solution or explanation that can be called upon to solve or investigate the matter at hand. Thus, by removing unnecessary steps and speculation, efficiency and accuracy can be maintained. Of course, this standpoint itself invites a lot of speculation and complexity in itself. Yet what is often missed by the critics of the razor is that if a more complex solution or explanation is needed for something, then there would have been a point at which Occam's razor was not applied, and thus the problem has become tangled in complications. If this is the case, then yes, a multifaceted approach may be needed, yet one that is balanced, objective, and harmonious in order to return back to the simplest solution. And we will go further into this multidisciplined and multifaceted approach when we look at the Six of Swords. But here in the Ace of Swords, the crux of the matter is, if we can solve something immediately with clarity and efficiency, then there is no need to complicate it further. And as we all know, the mind is much like a monkey, let alone, in fact, it is a monkey who is drunk and is dancing and has been bitten on the tail. In other words, it's going all over the place. Whereas the Ace of Swords keeps things to the point, literally. So now we're going to look at the symbolism we see in the Ace of Swords, and there is a lot of heavy symbolism in this apparently simple card. So the Ace of Swords is that which connects the divine to the mundane, and represents how something as ephemeral and ethereal as thoughts can have a lasting effect in both dimensions. Here we see this represented as the jade sword of the mind, here, reaching up from Malkuth at the bottom up to Kether, which is represented by the crown. And Malkuth, as we know from the Ten of Wands, is our physical realm, and Kether is the highest or most expansive realm of consciousness. In other words, this is 1, and here we have 10. And the mind is connecting the two. The white of the crown symbolises the purity of Kether, whilst the yellow parts of the crown represent the warmth and harmony of Tiphereth, through which the sword must pass. Tiphereth is the heart chakra, and we could say when looking at the sword, it's perhaps here on the horizon of the sun. And it is through the path of Tiphereth that Malkuth can reach Kether most efficiently. The 22 rays of the sun represent the 22 major arcana of the tarot, which I will be covering in later videos. And these, of course, emanate from Kether. They also symbolise harmony, balance, and strength in the number 22. The sun rising from the sea not only may hint towards the strength of Tiphereth, but it also represents both the fire of the wands in the sun and, of course, the water of the cups in the ocean below. It is from this union that the Ace of Swords is, of course, born. And it is rising here through a seemingly balanced mind. The sword is green simply because it is a combination of the yellow of the wands and the blue of the cups. It is simultaneously the colour of Venus, and shows that love is the arbiter by which we should direct our thoughts, and what brought the cups and the wands together in the first place. The sword is used as a common metaphor for thoughts, as they are piercing, sweeping, and double-edged, as we've mentioned already. Now, the Greek word thelema we see on the blade here is, of course, the name of Crowley's pseudo-esoteric religion, and it is a Greek word for will, as in one's willpower. Here it represents the purpose of Crowley's endeavour, which is to channel the will through mindfulness, clarity, and inspiration. The snake we see coiled around the handle here represents the ego, which is the crucible and creator of thought, as well as the Kundalini energy, which is wrapped around the bottom chakra. It is coiled 6 times to represent a balanced and harmonious ego that gives birth to and serves the superego in Tiphereth, which is of course 6. The 2 moons we see here represent a perfect reflection of balance found in Yesod, the 9th Sephirah, through which Malkuth consciousness must pass from Malkuth to get to Tiphereth. Do look at the 9 of Wands for further details on that. And here we see they also represent the Divine Feminine, and we will see these moons again in the High Priestess card and the Empress card when we look at the Major Arcana. Meanwhile, the spheres that we see on the handle here represent different elements of the Tree of Life once more, and create a rather phallic image. And here we have Netzach, Hod and Malkuth, so the 7th, 8th and 10th Sephirah. Finally, the clouds behind the sword evoke the shifting, opaque and airy nature of thoughts, qualities that are parted and cut through with the clarity of an objective thought, which is here of course the Ace of Swords. So the Ace of Swords is pure mental clarity and objectivity. It is mindfulness in the sense that it is the thought process that can observe and dissect thoughts. It is the throne of the conscious and thinking superego, and serves as a burning blade guarding the entrance to Kether, much like that described in Genesis 3 verse 24, which states, "He drove out the man, and at the east of the Garden of Eden he placed the cherubim and a flaming sword that turned every way to guard the way to the Tree of Life." So after that symbolism, we are now going to look at the divinatory interpretations of this card. So aside from mental clarity and objectivity, when well dignified, the card represents new perspectives, ideas, inspiration, mindful decisions, and revelations. When ill-dignified, the card is ruthless, cold, restless, and intellectually arrogant or dissatisfied. The key concept is objective thought and clear observation of the mind, and thus the world that it can perceive. And that is the Ace of Swords, and thank you very much everyone for watching this video to the end, if you have made it to the end. And I would be really happy and appreciative if you would leave a like on this video, as it really helps spread it around, and this, what I would dare I say, vital knowledge to everyone else on YouTube, as the Thoth Tarot is arguably one of the most symbolic and meaningful, should I say, meaningful tarot decks out there. And yes, it would be fantastic if you leave a like on this video, and if you really enjoyed what you saw today, then do hit that bell icon and subscribe to the channel for more in-depth videos on the Thoth Tarot cards, as well as tarot tutorials on different kinds of spreads, and I do tarot readings when I have the time for the different zodiac signs, not just your sun sign but your rising and your moon sign as well, although I am quite busy at the moment, so you might see less of those type of videos at the moment. So thank you very much again for watching this video, and I will see you next time when we look at the Two of Swords, which is known as Peace, and I wish you all a fantastic evening, morning, lunchtime, afternoon, or night, wherever you are in the world, and may peace be with you all. Goodbye.